perfectionism, the way I see it, is this expectation we put on ourselves that we're supposed to do it all, have it all, be it all, and look good while doing it, right? We're supposed to say yes to everything and then somehow make it look effortless. What's problematic about perfectionism is it's unachievable. We are literally setting ourselves up to fall short. There's no other way around it. We know in our minds, logically, nobody's perfect yet. We don't give ourselves that same grace.
What's up, Divine Living community? Oh my goodness. It has been a long while since I have done an interview on the Divine Living podcast. And that is because I am super selective in who I bring your way. So today's guest, you are in for the real stuff. You are in for a treat. You are in for depth. You are in for all things that are going to serve you in terms of living your best life, boosting your confidence, getting out of any kind of imposter syndrome, and actually loving who you are. Speaking of loving who you are, I love this woman, Nicole Kalil, who I am interviewing today on her brand new book, which we will have all the links in the show notes. Validation is for parking, ladies. I love it so, so much. I'm going to talk to Nicole about her book. I have had the opportunity to have a sneak peek and read it ahead of time. So I've got some juicy questions for Nicole. And if you don't already listen to her This Is Woman's Work podcast, which will also have the links in the show notes. This woman on a professional level has been in the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company, risen to the top of the corporate ladder, taken all kinds of risks to leave significant corporate salaries to then start her own business, take all kinds of risks in her own business to get to living the life that she loves with her husband, with her child, with her home, with her puppy, and also with her love for women and really, really empowering women to live their most confident lives. That's the professional bio. On the personal one, Nicole and I are somewhat recent friends, though it does not feel that way at all. We recently met through our mutual friend, Heather Monahan, and just could not have hit it off more. You know, when you just meet one of those people where you're like, she's my person, she's my tribe, she's my woman. Well, Nicole and I spent a super fun weekend in Miami, and we have kept in touch ever since. So on a personal and professional level, it is my great joy and honor to bring to you today, Nicole Kalil. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gina, for having me. There's quite literally no place I'd rather be right now than with you. And yes, I mean, I had the same thing when you meet somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my people, right? And it's funny, we met right before I locked my book. And so I snuck in an acknowledgement for you at the end of my book very quickly, because that's how much I loved you that quickly.
Oh my goodness. And I saw that. I was so, so honored and flattered. And, I just want to jump right in, if that's all right with you, Nicole. I think that the juiciness of, first of all, who I know you to be as a human and what you have poured into this book, ladies, like, please don't do yourself a disservice by thinking it is another book on confidence. It is not another book on anything. Nicole, when I was, we're going to start with the beginning of it, because something that I see going on so much for women right now post-pandemic is we were like so excited for the pandemic to end. We were like going to either get back to our lives or get on with our lives. And I am seeing women go through almost even harder times than during the pandemic, leaving long-term marriages. 7 of my friends are getting divorced, going through deep depressions, panic attacks are in the conversation on the regular. And, you very generously shared at the beginning of your book, just I think some of what led you to write this book and how you were feeling about yourself. So why don't we open up there? Tell us why you wrote this book and where you started with on your journey with it.
Yeah. So I think my obsession with confidence stemmed from the pain of not having any, right? And what was really interesting is when you think about somebody not having confidence, I think we have an image in our mind. And trust me, now I say that I did not match that image. everybody on the outside looking in would have described me as confident. I was racking up professional successes in a Fortune 100 finance firm. I was one of the few women, if not the only women, in any room of executives. I had bought my second home by the time I was 30. I had the designer clothes. I looked the part of the successful woman on the rise with the who needs a man attitude, right? And what was really extremely painful for me at that period of time was the knowledge, and it was knowledge only I had, of how much my insides did not match how it looked on the outside. I
Mm.
was in constant fear of being found out, feeling like a fraud. I was super lonely. I waited, every minute of the weekend until Monday morning arrived so I could have purpose again. I was dating all the wrong guys for all the wrong reasons. I had an above average spending problem to go with my above average income. It was just, that feeling where you're like, I don't even like myself. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin.
Mm.
I didn't trust myself. And it became really obvious to me in a moment where I got the biggest promotion of my career because people were congratulating. Somebody literally said to me, I wish I had your confidence. And I was excited about that promotion for about 3 minutes until the
Mm.
fear came in, the doubts. Can I do this job? Why did I get this job? Will people respect me? Will, all the noise started flooding in. And it was at that time that I recognized, the problem was I wanted confidence, but I didn't know what it is. And
Mm.
nobody was teaching me how you build confidence. Everyone was telling me to be confident or that I was confident. And that began this lifelong, journey of uncovering, discovering what confidence actually is, what it isn't, how we build it. And
Mhm.
and if you know anything about me as you do, Gina, I don't like to keep things a secret. So as I was figuring things out, I was telling everybody around me, especially the women in my world. And I would say my passion found me versus the other way around. And that's what led me to write the book. I wanted every woman who wanted to get their hands on the how to's of confidence building to be able to do that. And that's kind of what brings me here today. But I want to add one thing, Gina, that you had said, and I agree completely. My experience is I speak to so many women across the country, across the world, is we're exhausted. Like,
Mhm.
yes, there are women who are going through very painful divorces. There are women who are dealing with anxiety and depression. But at a base level, I would say, generally speaking, we're just freaking tired.
Mm.
Um, and I think a lot of that stems from, yes, there's been huge advancements for women. Yes, we've made huge progress. We still have far to go, in my opinion, but we've made huge progress. But what I perceive that's happened is all of these new opportunities that are being afforded to us are being added on top of old expectations.
Mm.
So, yes, we can be a CEO. Yes, we can be an entrepreneur. Yes, we can be a successful business owner. And for a lot of us, that's on top of being a committed and engaged spouse, or being potentially a committed and engaged mother, or keeping a really good home, or cooking really healthy meals, or taking care of our bodies physically. And it's like
And
it just
and
gets
and and
stacked.
and
Yes. Yeah. And so much is being stacked on top of the other. And I think we're hitting a collective breaking point.
it's interesting that you say that now, because one of the first pieces from your book that I really wanted to bring up, it's easy for Nicole. I know you and I have both been on the receiving end. We're like not feeling great about ourselves and our life, and we're like driving in the car listening to some podcast about from a conversation with these uber successful people that seem to have figured out, and you're like, ah. And so we're going to get to some of the mountaintop experiences that Nicole has gotten to. um, but one of the things that you talked about in your book, Nicole, was though you never attempted, you actually had thoughts of suicide.
Mhm.
And I think what struck me, there's a friend of mine going through a divorce right now. And like, she didn't say those words, but she might as well have said the exact same ones. Like, it's so much of everything that you just said that's being stacked on top of, and now there's like a toxic divorce in legal bills on top of everything else you just mentioned. And she's like not actively pursuing, but talking about suicide. And so I just want to address this despair in women so we don't gloss over it, so that we can really be a bridge no matter where someone's coming in at or listening at, to then get to where each person's meant to get to. So just want to talk about either what that was like for you or why you chose to even share that word in your book, which I thought was so brave.
Yeah, I mean, I shared it because it was real. And that was something that's very important for me and all the work that I do, to be transparent. Yes, I want to talk about the mountaintops, but I want to talk about the struggles to climb them as
Mm-hmm.
well, because I know how, and that's one of the things I value and respect and and appreciate so much about you in our conversations, is it wasn't just the easy and the brilliant and the, best moments. We talked about the real parts of it, and that
Mm-hmm.
made me feel less alone. And I think that's so important. As it relates to, feeling like it's too much, wanting to give up, whether that's suicide or something else, first and foremost, please seek professional support and help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not equipped, that is not my area of expertise. And there is absolutely no shame. I have gone to therapy, continue to go to therapy. I'm calling my therapist this week. Before we hit record, I was telling you, Gina, about some things that are going on in my life. And we're not meant to handle it all. We're not
Mm-hmm.
meant to feel alone. We're not meant to carry all the loads, not only our own, but everybody else's. I firmly believe that. And if you're feeling that way, then the very best advice I can give you is to get help from somebody whose sole job it is to be on your side, to care
Mm-hmm.
about what's in your best interests. It's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful to have friends, and we should definitely reach out when we're feeling lonely or any of those things. But there is just something about having somebody who's, you know, all
Yeah.
about you, and that is it, and has no, you know,
And has
ulterior
the
motives,
skill
no.
set to
Exactly.
help you with it. It's, every friend wants to help and not every friend is equipped. Um,
Exactly.
so I think that's so important. And, just really getting that for all of us, we at different seasons in our life experience the different range of emotions, from whatever form despair takes on in your life to enthusiasm and elation and everything in between. I do think that it's avoidable also. And so much of what you brilliantly write about in your book is sort of like depression and suicidal ideation happens when we've let so much build up and we've ignored ourselves so much or discounted ourselves so much, and then there's like this almost tipping point or this time of crisis. So let's kind of shift gears and
Yeah,
talk about your definition of confidence, because and
sure.
every ladies, you listening in the divine living community, Nicole like amazingly uses confidence in the way I synonymously use queen. So just like I want you to know how aligned our missions are, how aligned this conversation actually is. If you have like a, I don't know, your own thing about confidence, wait till you hear how Nicole defines confidence. So go for
Yeah.
it, Nicole.
So I'm going to give you the definition, but I want to add, I think you're totally right, Gina. The time in my life when I was feeling this way, when I was thinking these thoughts, from the outside looking in, there weren't really big, obvious problems. The problem was that I didn't trust myself. I didn't
Mhm,
value myself. And that
mhm,
to me is avoidable. If you flash forward to today, I'm going through some really challenging times where outside looking in, people would be like, wow, this is really tough. And I'm not having those thoughts or those feelings at all.
mhm,
Why? Because my confidence is different today. And I'm not trying to oversimplify. I know there are a lot of contributing factors, to how somebody might feel. But for me, that is the biggest difference. Okay, so how do I define confidence? Confidence is when you know who you are, own who you're not, and choose to embrace all of it. And if that's complicated to remember, or to hold on to, let me
Just say
simplify
it
it
again.
even
It's
more.
so good. It's so good. Say it again.
Confidence is when you know who you are. So measure of self-awareness, self-appreciation, valuing of self, right? When you own who you're not, where you are aware of what's not meant for you, what's not your purpose, what do you shouldn't you be doing, not because somebody says you shouldn't, but because it's not meant for you. And then choosing to embrace all of it, which is really embracing all of you. But the simplest way to remember it is I went back to the etymology of the word confidence. I went to the root, and confidence is when you trust yourself. That is the simplest thing you can remember. Firm, bold trust in self. That is what confidence is. Anything else might be something amazing, might be something wonderful, might be great, but it isn't confidence. Confidence is when you trust yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. So we hear this a lot. Trust yourself, trust your gut. And yet I want everyone listening to really apply it to what you're going through today. This isn't an esoteric conversation. Can be a very powerful, practical one in just how are you showing up in terms of trusting yourself? Like, is your kid asking for something and you're like, should I set a boundary or not? And you're like, not trusting yourself. Is your boss doing the same thing? Is a client doing the same thing? Are you showing up on someone's podcast yourself and maybe not trusting that who you are is enough and what you have to offer is enough?
Sure.
I think what you're getting at here, Nicole, there's a depth in which you talk about it in your book that is personally so spiritually profound to me. So maybe I'll let you elaborate more and where you go to with this trust in yourself piece.
Yeah. So I think sometimes, and I call this the confidence con, and there's a lot of elements of this, but we visualize trusting ourselves as if that means we have all the answers, or everything works out the way that it's supposed to, or everything goes according to plan. We have this visual of when we choose to trust ourselves that everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns. And that has not at all been my experience. But what I will tell you is no matter what, trusting myself has always served me. And so, I mean, let's use book launch. This is one of the biggest and scariest things I've ever done. I wanted to write a book for as long as I can remember. And, true to form for me, I got caught in overthinking. I have perfectionist tendencies, and all the reasons, right, to not do it. And now I wrote this book. It's out there. People are reading it, and I'm having head trash about it. What if somebody doesn't like it? Blah, blah, blah. So here's an example. I don't know how many books I'm going to sell. I don't know if I'm going to get 1-star or 5-star or some combination reviews, and I don't have control over it. Here's what I do know. I wrote the very best book that I could in the time, given the information and experience that I had at the time. I trust that. I know that with every fiber of my being. I couldn't have written a better book than I did at this time.
Gorgeous.
And I trust that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. If nobody buys it, if nobody likes it, I'm going to be okay, because while I did write the book to impact the reader, I didn't write it for everyone. Right. And so I'm going to be okay no matter what. And that doesn't mean I don't have fears or doubts or concerns, or all the noise is kicking up right now. I'd be lying if I said that it didn't. But every time it does, I go back to what I know to be true about me. I go back to why I did this in the first place. I go back to a knowing and awareness that I will come out the other side of this better somehow, some way, because that's that's the only available option for me. I'm just going to keep trusting myself and choosing to trust myself over and over and over again until it works the way it's supposed to work. That's my only available option.
And what I love about why it doesn't when I was reading your book, it didn't come across like the trust yourself. It came across as such depth. Is the way I assimilated it was you were self-sourcing. Like you weren't making anything or anyone outside of you the source of your happiness, the source of your confidence, the source of you're going to be okay. It was such a, the kingdom of heaven is within. And I say this somewhat jokingly with Nicole. She calls herself an agnostic. She also outs herself that she's read the Bible cover to cover, and she uses biblical scriptures in her book. So you do with Nicole what you want. But I just found such a deep spiritual understanding of the Spirit of God is within.
Well, and I think that's when I say I'm agnostic, what I mean is that I respect all religions greatly, and I respect each of us as source in our own life to
Mhm,
choose to believe what is best for us.
mhm,
Um, and I find great value and great comfort in scripture, and I believe that we're all responsible, and I don't mean that from the burden place that some
mhm,
like like responsibility. Sometimes a lot of people think burden associated with
mhm,
that. I mean able to respond. I mean that I am the decider of how I react, how I respond, what I choose, is meant for me, what's not meant for me, and our opportunity is to really listen to ourselves. I think we have that knowing, whether you choose to believe that is God or something else that lives inside of us, and our opportunity is to really connect, to really
mhm,
listen. And that's where, in my opinion, deep trust stems from. And I'll also add, in my experience, we build trust at the deepest and the most lasting level during the hardest times in our life.
mm,
Why? Because it's easy to trust ourselves when everything's going well. When everything's going according to plan, when you're hitting all the achievements and the accolades and the results and everything is working out the way, we want it to, that's when it's super easy to trust ourselves. And I'm not saying that that doesn't feel good or that that doesn't reinforce the trust we have in ourselves, but where we have our greatest opportunity, where I think it becomes faith or just belief in ourselves, is during those really challenging times where it becomes much, much harder to choose to trust ourselves, but therefore much, much, much more rewarding.
mm, preach, preach, preach. Okay, there's a subject that comes up a lot in the divine living community, and I don't think I address it really well because though I have many issues, this is just not one of mine. Perfectionism. And you talk about how much perfectionism derails confidence and success in your book. So let's talk about, for any of the perfectionists out there, how we can get them out of derailing their own confidence with it.
Yeah. So perfectionism is a plague that impacts so many women. I am a recovering perfectionist. That is probably one of the derailers that impacts me the most. And if I'm not conscious or if I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, it really kicks up in high gear. So perfectionism, the way I see it, is this expectation we put on ourselves that we're supposed to do it all, have it all, be it all, and look good while doing it. Right? We're supposed to say yes to everything and then somehow make it look effortless. What's problematic about perfectionism is it's unachievable. We are literally setting ourselves up to fall short. There's no other way around it. We know in our minds, logically, nobody's perfect yet. We don't give ourselves that same grace. And a lot of it stems from, at least in my experience, how it looks to other people. Right? We want to do it a little bit for ourselves, but mostly so other people see us as capable, competent, put together, a good parent or whatever it is for us. So again, what makes it problematic is you're always going to fall short, and then what we have a tendency to do is beat ourselves up for it. So I call that second derailer head trash, but that's the unkind, untrue things we say to ourselves about ourselves that stem from the inevitable conclusion of falling short. So how do we combat this? Well, it's not what you're going to want to hear if you're a perfectionist. I know that because I didn't want to hear it.
Wait, hold on. Because I want to get there, but you've dropped so many like wisdom bombs. I've got to stop you here because we're going to go there next.
Yeah.
But this perfection, like you said, it's unattainable. So let's just really pause on that. So like anyone going for perfection in any area of your life, it doesn't exist. And yet it's like sucking up the collective consciousness of so many women thinking the thing that doesn't even exist is the holy grail. Can we like as a recovering, I'm a recovering codependent and many other things, but like this one, like help me understand this perfectionistic thing and then we'll help people get out of it.
Yeah, I think that there is an element of how we are conditioned and socialized and raised, especially as women. Now, perfectionist tendencies chip away at everybody, regardless of your gender. I think it shows up differently for men than it does for women. For men, it's more compartmentalized. It's typically more career success, providing focus, whereas women, it's like everything, right? We take it all across the board. I want to say this as strongly as I possibly can. I've heard it said before, and I just want to, perfectionism is the enemy of confidence. If you are striving for perfectionism, you are simultaneously chipping away, destroying, and doing damage to the trust you have in yourself. You have to think about it that strongly because it is that damaging. But yeah, I think, we are told, research shows from a very young age as young girls that, we need to be helpful. We need to be careful. We need to be pretty. We need to be, well-behaved. We aren't often, and this is not true for everybody, but we're often not afforded the same allowances to get messy, to make mistakes, to misbehave. And so, there's a conditioning that happens and is reinforced through media, advertising, social media. And by the time we hit our professional working years, we are entering the workforce with far less confidence, generally speaking, than our male counterparts. And then, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And we see perfectionism play out so much in professional environments and in the workforce. This over-rotation we often have as women to focus on our being capable, being credible, being competent. We overemphasize competence instead of confidence. And that is not the only thing that's contributing to things like the wage gap or opportunities for women, but it is one of the things that's contributing.
I mean, now that one, I don't know if I call myself a perfectionist, but I can see where that has derailed me in my own entrepreneurial endeavors. Like I see where I let myself be messy and move forward. And I got pretty far pretty quickly because I didn't need to be perfect. And then I've seen where I spent more time becoming more competent, perfecting my craft, studying more, going to because of this ingrained, well, if I just offer a better service or if I just do better or know more, then I'll be more successful. And then, you're watching somebody with the, depth of a millimeter skyrocket, to success because that's not what they were focused on, and it's like they were just confident.
Let's be real, it's a little frustrating. Research shows that people will always follow the most confident person in the room, even over the most competent. Now, logically, that pisses me off, right? You've got to be kidding me. You're going to follow the person who shows up more confidently over the person who has the experience, who's done the research, who, it's a little unfortunate and kind of dumb if you think about it, but here we are. And so I think we have the opportunity. The way I frame it is confidence on the road to competence, because we cannot be competent at anything we're new at, right? When you're new at something, when you're trying something for the first time or doing something you've never done before, you can't be competent it's not again, it's not an available option. What we can do is choose to trust ourselves, choose to say, I don't have the answers, but I'll get the answers, or I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. In those moments as we develop our competence. I think, unfortunately, there are lots of people out there who over rotate to confidence. And I don't think it's just men, but we all have people out there where we
Mhm.
listen to their work and we're like, how in God's name are you? I mean, I won't name names, but I went on to a public speaking training with somebody who is crushing it in this space. And I was appalled. Like, I'm like, I don't know how anybody's paying you anything, let alone the extreme success. And know without a shadow of doubt that I'm more competent than this person at this particular skill. And yet it was just a reminder, people will always follow the most confident person in the room. And we need to remember that and then still build our competence.
All right. So this interview is not over, but I just want everyone to stop for a moment. Like, you're welcome. Like, this is the thing that we all need to focus on, what Nicole has just shed the spotlight on. If you will focus on your competence and grow your confidence, if you'll focus on your confidence and grow your competence, you are going to be ahead so much further, so much faster, so much happier, because you're going to be living and thriving the way that you desire versus, watching other people live the life that you want to be living. I mean, I know that I'm personally taking that one for me. So thank you, Nicole.
My pleasure. And let me just add too, the thing that's problematic about over rotating to competence is sometimes it's never enough, right? Like we'll say when
For
we
sure.
develop this skill, then we'll feel confident. We'll develop that skill. And it's like, oh, no, I just need to do that one other skill. And it's like we become addicted
Hmm.
to these external things that we think are going to bring us the confidence. Now, when you combine both confidence on the road to competence, as you increase and develop your skill, it will increase and develop your confidence, but you can't ignore confidence, choose competence, and think that confidence is going to arrive.
Yep.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yep. 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 Okay. There's so much more that I even want to talk to you about that, but for the sake of time, I want to move into what does not derail. So perfectionism derails confidence. What is the shocking thing that does not derail confidence?
Yeah. So took me a couple years to accept this as truth because I didn't want it to be true. But failure builds confidence. Failure is a confidence builder. I think so many of us have it as a confidence derailer in our mind. And when I say failure, I'm just choosing a word that I think triggers a lot for people, but you could replace it with making mistakes, fear, doubt,
Yeah, no, you
loss.
kind of had us at the jugular with failure. Well done. Because when I read that, I was like, okay, I don't have perfectionism issues, but things around failure, like ding, 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 ding. So
Yeah.
talk to us. How does failure build confidence?
Yeah. So, well, first, the most successful, most confident people we know are the ones who failed the biggest and failed the most. We may not be aware of what that is or what it looks like, but that is absolutely true. Um, the other thing, I already alluded to this before, to remember is that trust gets built deepest and the longest lasting during those tough times.
Hmm.
And one of the things I always tell myself when I'm experiencing failure is the only thing that's missing is hindsight. I don't
Hmm.
know yet how this is going to serve, how this is going to support, how this is going to lead me to something better or bigger or that's meant for me or whatever. I just know that it will because everything in my experience shows that it has. So the only thing that's missing right now is hindsight. I tell myself over and over. And then the other thing to remember about failure is that it's a neutral event. And I want to acknowledge that I know that it doesn't feel neutral. When you are
Hmm.
experiencing it, it feels not at all neutral. It feels the opposite of neutral, right? But we know failure is a neutral event because we are the ones bringing meaning to it. If you take the same event and it had 10 people experience it, you would get 10 different interpretations, 10 different perceptions. I remember hearing a gentleman speak at an engagement, and he talked about starting the year at 350,000 in the negative. And the entire audience went like, for him, it was small potatoes. It was no big deal. He still was going to go on and have his best year ever. For some people in the audience, that was more than they were going to make in 5 years. And that seemed insurmountable. That seemed like,
Mhm.
I'm going to curl up in the fetal position and just give up. Right. And so if we, at least for a few minutes, believe that failure is neutral and that we're the ones bringing meaning to the event, then it's the good news is we can bring a different meaning. We can bring a different interpretation. We
Mhm.
can choose to look at that failure as a gift. We can choose to look at it as a lesson, an opportunity. A one door closes so others can open. We can bring a more productive, more empowered interpretation to this experience, to this event we're calling failure. And if all else fails, just that loving reminder, the only thing that's missing is the benefit of hindsight. You don't yet know, but if you
Mhm.
trust, you can get through it and get on the other side of it with more confidence than if you never experienced it in the first place. So that's why failure, getting messy, making mistakes, facing your fears, that's why all of that builds confidence.
I mean, it's I've never seen it. Like, you'll see in her book, there's like actually like a chart, and like seeing it drawn out in black and white like that. And then it all of a sudden seems so obvious. The wisdom is so profound. It's like any of the things that I have quote unquote failed at, you know, try and knock me now, right? Like the things
Yeah.
I was so afraid of, like my magazine going under after I'd sunk 7 figures into it. It's like, well, I learned a lot from that experience. Like, you know people smearing my name publicly or whatever. It's like, thanks for helping me heal my codependency. It's like team members leaving the day of an event or a launch or whatever. You're like, life goes on. Like all of the things that I was so afraid of failing at have done exactly what you write about in your book. They're just like, I couldn't be more confident in those areas. And it's not about a cockiness. It's about that inner knowing, that
Yeah.
realizing that when you trust yourself to be there for yourself, to show up for yourself, to have resilience for yourself, there's really nothing to be afraid of. So it's so beautiful. And I will say also, all these really rich, deep subjects that we're talking about, she's got beautiful exercises in her book for each one of them. So you're going to be able to like dive deep and really go through the exercises and apply the personal circumstances to your life. You will benefit greatly.
I always joke around, if I have a superpower, I'm like, how to girl. Like, I just love step by step. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to do it. I know it's not the sexiest superpower there is, but I just
So
wanted people to be able to apply and test out in their life. I didn't want it to be hypothetical and theoretical.
well, I think that there's a lot of people listening that would think it's really sexy. I never do a step by step or a how to, and people are always like break it down for me. I'm like, re-listen to the podcast. Like it's not the way my mind works. So people here in this community are going to love that you have dissected it and broken it down so beautifully in such an organized way. In kind of putting a button on this like confidence piece, I think there's like something I would love for you to talk about. In You've talked about what it is, but to really get clear on when and where we give our power away or we're doubting ourselves. And then one of your solutions for getting back into a place of power more quickly.
Yeah. So, yes, I think the confidence con is the word confidence is being thrown out and overused when we mean something else entirely. So as an example, what I'm thinking is, what is confidence not? Confidence is not arrogance. And I know we see that a lot in professional environments where somebody, is yelling at somebody else or bragging or boasting, and we think that's confidence. Arrogance is not confidence. Arrogance requires you to make somebody less than in order for you to be greater than or better. Confidence is not having to compare yourself to anyone at all.
Mm.
Confidence is also not ego. It's also not connected to anything external. And I think as women, this is where we have the most confusion. We're told if we look a certain way, then we'll feel confident. We're told that happiness is the same as confidence. We're told that when we feel good, we must be confident. And unfortunately, it minimizes the power of what true confidence is, because remember, it's easy to trust yourself when you feel good, but when you're not feeling good, when the feeling of confidence isn't there and you get to choose it over and over again, that's where real trust is built. But I think the thing that I would really want to reiterate here is that your confidence isn't out there. Nothing or no one has your confidence. This isn't some weird life game of Where's Waldo, where you need to find the person or the thing that has it, and then all of a sudden you gain your confidence. Your confidence isn't out there. Your confidence is living inside of you. It's been there all along, no matter how deeply or not deeply you're connected to it at this very moment. It is there. So how do we build it? Well, I give a lot of actionable things in the book, and I've identified what I call 5 confidence builders. But what I would try to do to simplify it for our time together today is think about how you build trust with other people. Think about how people build trust with you. Therein gives you the best, quickest insight into how you'll build trust with yourself. So let me give a few examples. We tend to trust people, generally speaking, universally, who keep their commitments. We lose trust in people who don't do what they say they're going to do, who don't follow through, who don't whatever. So think about this in your life. Are you keeping the commitments you make more often than not? This is not about perfection. Nobody keeps 100% of their commitments 100% of the time, but this is about really building trust in yourself. And what I found with women is we do a much better job keeping the commitments we make to other people, our team, our boss, our friends, our child, or whatever, than the ones that we make with ourselves. So if you make a commitment to take care of your body, to eat or healthy or work out or do something that gives you energy, like go for a walk outside or read or travel or do a girls trip, when you make the commitment, you need to deliver on the commitment you make to yourself as much, if not more, than the ones you make to others in order to develop trust within yourself. Now, side note here, as women, we need to be careful we're not overcommitting. Because we do that too much. Another thing that I think builds internal trust is communicating boundaries, which I know, Gina, you are big on as well. Have your yes be your yes and your no be your no. That's a challenging thing. If we default yes and say yes to everything, then we're probably going to stop keeping the commitments that we make to others or to ourselves, and we're chipping away at trust. It's also about using your voice, standing up for yourself, speaking your truth. These are the things that build trust in our relationship with other people. And of course, will work for ourselves as well. So I could go on for days. I could give you lots of examples, but I would invite you to think, what makes you trust somebody? What has somebody trust you? And then how do you apply that to yourself? That's the best way to start to build that confidence from the inside versus seeking it outside of ourselves.
Oh, love this and love you so much, Nicole. Clearly, this is such an important topic that we could go on and on about. So, ladies, for the sake of time, do yourself a favor and click on the link in the show notes, get Nicole's book. I also believe Nicole has a free gift for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go to my website and scroll down on the book section, you can actually, once you order the book, get a 40+ page workbook companion that takes all the exercises and breaks them down and adds some more information and examples and things like that. So this is a way that you can take the book and put it into practice, put it into action, test things out in your life and take it at whatever speed works for you. But my hope is it'll give you an opportunity to reflect at a deeper level, to apply at a deeper level. And so that's available for you on my website, NicoleKalil.com, in the book section.
Awesome. We will have that link below. If you are not following Nicole on Instagram, you are missing out. Sometimes when I just need like a 5-second vacation from my life, I go on her stories. The woman is hilarious. She has
not always appropriate though.
Yes, like I know when I have to be careful, I'm like, when I find things funny or memes or whatever, I'm like, hey, I can't put this on the Divine Living. It's a little off brand, but like, here you go. So you can count on Nicole for all things humorous and inappropriate, but she's just super fun to follow on Instagram. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this episode, tag us, tell us what your biggest nugget and takeaway was from this time. DM each of us. We are here for you. If you've got other thoughts or questions, let us know. Nicole, you have been amazing as always. When normally we get together as friends, it's been fun to get together professionally today. Thank you for writing this gem of a book. I know it is, people are going to buy it. I know I already did. Actually, I had a free copy of mine, but when I saw it was on pre-order, I went and bought myself a copy to support Nicole. So buy a copy of Nicole's book to support you and your confidence building. Thanks again
Gina,
so much for being here.
I am eternally grateful for you. Thank you for your abundant spirit and for your generosity and for just being an amazing woman, an amazing human. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. The feeling is more than mutual. And until next time, everyone, take care. Oh my goodness, how much did you love this conversation? Please go ahead and take a screenshot of this episode right now. And I want you to tag me on Instagram and share with me what your biggest takeaway was. I love being in conversation with you, hearing from you, DM me. And I really love getting what is the one big takeaway that you got from this episode. Let me know on Instagram.